Hello and welcome to Maximum Arctic Monkeys, the first talking book about the band. It was written and researched by Michael Sumption, music is by Amanda Thompson and it's read by Sian Jones. You can check out our full catalogue on our website at www.chromedreams.co.uk.
It was about 2002. We got guitars at Christmas. We started playing together in my garage that summer. We raced there for a bit, raced in a warehouse for about a year. And we did his first gig in June 2003. And we played a few gigs around Sheffield for a bit. Then we started doing some gigs out of Sheffield about this time last year.
The Arctic Monkeys are like a breath of fresh air for contemporary British guitar pop. Saviours of a spunky, vibrant, charismatic pop lineage that encompasses the likes of The Clash, The Jam and The Smiths. They are irrepressible, incandescent and completely attuned to the modern world. They are mercurial, trailblazing, adventurous and compelling, offering snapshots of 21st century life seen through the lens of four hyperactive, intelligent young lads in love with the possibilities before them. Alex, Jamie, Andy and Matt are possessed of vitality and spontaneity, a fearlessness that marks them out from the glut of wet, timid, grey guitar acts outpouring their woes and clogging up the nation's charts and airtime. They are here to rescue pop from this overwhelming complacency of beige mediocrity, a scene where Coldplay can inspire a whole generation of pallid, weak, diluted underachievers to take centre stage and act as a new coffee table soundtrack. Music needed to be about something again, and this heroic four-piece have delivered an impressive salvo of bite, vitriol, humour, self-lacerating wit and poetic potency to remind us of this fact. Their northern roots, often cited as a quintessential element of this group's style and character, have seen them billed as the Northern Libertines. Yet there is much more to them than snotty swagger and junky cool. Their catchy tunes and witty lyrics have been compared to the social commentaries of the Kinks, the Streets, Pulp and the Jam. Their music is both direct and profound, a difficult trick to pull off. They write what they know about and package these narratives into smart, snappy, urgent pop classics in the making. There is nothing contrived, cynical or manipulative about this quartet. They write from the heart and play with an abandon and a roguish recklessness that invite comparisons with the best of British pop from the past quarter of a century. Their songs sound completely devoid of artifice or excess and suggest that they need to exist. Much indie music can sometimes seem to be apologising for itself, but the Arctic Monkeys carry a presence, an indefatigable sense of truth and honesty and clarity around with them at all times, whether it be in a local club or performing at an awards ceremony. Arctic Monkeys' songs burn with a hallucinatory intensity and a commitment to the moment as it is lived. There is an erotic tension that bursts all over the music like lightning and rain. They carry the listener through anger, amusement, defiance, violence, fatalism, menace, delight, freedom and loss. It's as though the fate of the universe rests on their ability to reach deeply into their souls to get all the way into ours. The tunes achieve a tense and eerie balance as each element of the music seems to pull more than its own weight. Not one image or guitar lick is wasted, nothing is gratuitous. Their surging, deceptively simple music applies a desperately needed shot of life-giving adrenaline to the prone form of the four-piece group. Musically, their throbbing guitar thrash conjures up a heady rush of visual images, like the way a glass dish that wasn't heat-proof would prick just before it exploded if erroneously placed in a very high oven, or the last cartwheel of a tumbleweed impaled on a particularly intractable cactus. Lyrically, there is all human life and more. Decadence, sex, disappointment, drunken insolence, and a razor-sharp eye for the minutiae of the everyday. For such a frighteningly young group still in their infancy, they are capable of stoning the soul and raising the hairs on the back of your neck with almost impudent delight. They aren't interested in being sonic explorers in an academic and buttock-clenching sense. They want to pinpoint those transient moments of affirmation and intensity that can get washed up by the onset of maturity, responsibility, and obedience. There are times at their gigs when you can feel the audience fall in love with them, the song they are singing, the evening. These are little miracles, these fleeting moments of epiphany. They make you grateful for the music you know, the music you have yet to hear, the life you are going to live. These songs are utterly convincing and shake your body into life with pure adrenaline. Artists who can persuade you of the truth of what they're singing are artists capable of an awful lot. The Arctic Monkeys deliver this time after time, touching you with their sincerity, humour and social observations. Their music has a rawness, a vibrancy and a poetry that simply cannot be packaged or premeditated. They are as real as vintage Coronation Street, fish and chips, a pint at your local, a night out with your mates, and the collected works of Patrick Hamilton and Ray Davies. They are an iconic gaggle of ordinary young guys intent on transcending the limitations of guitar pop to create something singular, refreshing and accessible without bowing to the lowest common denominator. Their tunes are infectious, larky, hook-laden and propulsive, full of searing guitars and anthemic power. Guitars and drums ricochet off each other, riffs are hurled around like footballs and vocals bleed with intensity and bravado. They create a manic punk metal roller coaster plunge of a noise that is uninhibited and loose and free. The Arctic Monkeys are less obsessed with retro flavour than with full-blown balls-out rock and roll, coming complete with a cocky, charming leader. Alex's club crawler's eye view perspective sets him apart from his contemporaries and imbues his band's work with an authenticity, a sense of reportage that places him on a similar pedestal to Mike Skinner of the Streets. The group's fans know he has lived and lives among the world he describes with such unflinching accuracy and wit. The band has bags of potential, and the Arctic Monkeys have already delivered one of the defining records of the age. They stand poised to become the biggest rock band in the world if that's what they want to achieve. They have redefined the methodology of acclaim and success in the modern pop industry, bypassing the traditional routes of PR and record label hyperbole and establishing a significant fan base on the back of word of mouth and the internet. This is in itself a remarkable achievement and has marked them out as true innovators and radical spirits.
We got to the point where we were able to pack in as jobs and what we were doing because we had enough interest to, go at least somewhere for a bit. And then we got did a first proper tour in May and June this year, which were pretty much sold out. And then we did a second tour in August, which was a similar thing, which ended at Reading and Leeds. And then we did a third proper tour, and it's sell out sort of thing. So yeah, that's a brief.
The Arctic Monkeys' story began in Sheffield in the 1980s. Alex Turner and Matt Helders were friends from the same high green district of Sheffield since the age of 7 or 8, and hung around with each other outside of school, passing the time with a shared sense of humour and interest in cheeky scrapes. By the time they hit their teens, they were developing a primitive interest in music and noticed that contemporaries of theirs and their elder siblings were forming bands and making a racket in their parents' garages and local halls. It seemed that music was replacing sport, and hanging out as a popular pastime, not to mention offering the possibility of female company as well. They listened to the radio, bought records by noisy indie guitar bands, and began investigating the roots of the music they liked. Hip-hop also featured in their record collections, defining a certain mindset that appealed to their burgeoning sense of independence and cultural awakening. Helders and Turner left school, and both attended Barnsley College for A-level studies, where the music bug really kicked in. They both had their own groups of friends and would attend local gigs as much as they could, as well as following the musical progress of their college peers and avidly consuming the music press. Guitar, rock and pop made music seem accessible to them, part of their world and not some elitist pursuit. The formal teaching of music at school failed to inspire them and seemed to have no relevance or frame of reference to their lives and their interests. By Christmas 2002, Turner and Helders had decided that they wanted to pursue music seriously. Jamie Cook befriended the pair of them and instantly established a common musical bond. Helder and Turner asked for instruments for Christmas presents from their families. In retrospect, this was the catalyst for the whole Arctic Monkeys phenomenon. Turner and Cook gravitated towards electric guitars, spurred on by a love of lean, sharp, jerky indie and new wave punk, while Helders found his niche on drums. Turner and Cook practiced obsessively on their guitars and quickly improved their techniques. They were fired up by the work of the White Stripes, the Hives and the Vines in particular. These groups were setting a template for grabbing the adrenaline-charged sounds of the late 70s and reshaping them in their image. Turner and Cook learnt their songs off by heart and grew to know their every nuance and chord sequence inside out. College became less of a focus and more of a backdrop for their musical ambitions, as they recruited Andy Nicholson on bass guitar in 2003 and began composing their own material, rehearsing in a Neepsend warehouse. Nicholson slotted in seamlessly, providing a robust, stoic counterpoint to the thrashing madness around him. Never showy or garish, his bass runs became a masterclass in economy and selfless devotion to the group cause. The group's name was coined by Jamie Cook, who had been fooling around at school one day writing fantasy football teams and imaginary band names into the back of an exercise book when he should have been listening to his teacher. It was a name he'd remembered doodling, and when he mentioned it to the rest of the group, they were in agreement that this should be their moniker. There was something impish and cheeky schoolboy about the name that appealed to all members. Contrary to popular myth, the name The Arctic Monkeys wasn't derived from a chance encounter with a tramp. The story was that the guys passed a forlorn tramp in a doorway and went back to sing him a song. He christened them the Arctic Monkeys. It's an endearing story, but sadly not a true one. Another rumour was that it was the name of a relative's local band in the 1970s, but this proved to be a fabrication in an interview when the guys were bored by the facile questions fired at them. The guys decided that concise, fiery, no-nonsense, economical garage rock would be their milieu, and so rehearsed together madly for months and months.